Okay, guys. So as promised, I'm coming back with a full review of Machine of Life, Michael E. Kinneric's book. I went through the first few chapters and I started to give you guys some insights on what this book was about. But as I got deeper into the book, um, some really interesting revelations came about by reading this book. First of all, this is not a book. This is multiple books. Okay. Each one of these chapters is a book in and of itself. And I feel like that each one of the chapters in this book could be expanded into a full book as thick as this. So, there are, this is a concise overview of a lot of different topics, but each topic could easily be expanded without any problem at all. The book reminds me of several other books, so I'm going to tell you the books that remind me of this book, so that you'll have a reference point. The first book that it reminds me of is Richard Marcinko's book, which is Leadership Secrets of the Rogue Warrior. This is a great book. If you haven't read it, I suggest you read it after you read Mike's book, because this book is by one of the guys that founded SEAL Team 6, and it has stories and history and interesting information, and it reminded me some of the things in Mike's book about some of his experiences, um, and the interesting things that he's done in his military career. The next book that it reminds me of is Book of Five Rings. Book of Five Rings is Musashi's book that he wrote. He was the sword saint, greatest swordsman of Japan's history, and it reminds me Book of Five Rings because of the way it breaks down the chapters and it breaks down the specifics in each piece. The Book of Five Rings was written by Musashi for his students, and it was written in some ways. If you weren't a student at all of Musashi's, you could read this book and you could get some pieces out of it. But if you were a student, you could get out so much more. And I feel like that's kind of how Mike's book is. If you're a student of his, you're going to see things in here that are going to be reference material for everything that he teaches as an overview. The next book is Budosho Shinshu. This is one of my favorite books, and this is a book about the wisdom of the samurai, and it's a little bit more organized than Book of Five Rings, and it goes into rules and stories and things about how to live a warrior lifestyle. And I think um, Mike's book is a lot about how to live a warrior lifestyle, and it goes through the bits and pieces that kind of surround his take on what it has taken for him to develop a life that is the life of a warrior. And last but not least, Art of War by Sun Tzu. And the book reminds me of that because of the strategies that he utilizes. It's really interesting because in the Art of War, it kind of tells you what to do, but it doesn't necessarily go into practical applications of how it's done. In Michael's book, I could pull out 30 examples of things in this book that are principles that could directly relate to principles out of Art of War. Okay. So all in all, I was thrilled with the book. I think the book is fantastic. And it's fun to read as it is informative. And there is enough interesting things about it that I think even if you're not a martial artist, you could read this book and be like, well, this is just really cool. And you could flip to any section in this book and say, well, this is what I'm really interested in. And you could start there. You don't have to read this book from beginning to end. You could actually flip open to the to the index, and you could say, well, I want to learn about nutrition, and go to that section. You could learn about knife fighting. You could learn about guns. You could learn about all these different things. And it would give you a good broad overview of his philosophy on each one of these pieces. The only thing that I've got a problem with is that now Mike has got to write a bunch more books. That's it, because each one of these topics has got to go into a lot more detail. Because a great overview, certainly. But now I just feel like that there is so much more that can be said on each one of these subjects in a much deeper manner. And so I hope Mike will continue to write because he does have a gift for it. And get this version of it. You know, I don't. At some point, somebody's going to come along and say, "Hey, I want to edit this book, and I want to do some. You know, I want to do this or that, or organize the material, whatever." Don't go for any of that. Get the unedited version. Order it off of Amazon and get it because it's a lot more fun to read. You know, you've got his language in it. You know, there's misspellings. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in here, but it doesn't matter because it all comes across in his voice, and I think it's much more interesting than just having something that comes out as super polished and super edited, and you don't really get the author's voice in it. Okay, and there's a lot of surprising stuff in here. There's stuff about him being a DJ, about him doing fashion shows, and all this crazy stuff, things that you wouldn't necessarily expect from his history, but it all sort of interweaves together and you figure out, oh, okay, well, that's the reason why he is the way he is, because he's got all these different components that have made his life interesting. So anyway, a long review, but I hope you guys get the book, read it. Lots of interesting stuff in here. Ordered off Amazon, and congratulations, Mike. It's a fantastic book, and the only thing I've got to say is now you've got a responsibility to write a lot more.